Good evening. I will now call to order the July 11, 2024 City of South Pasadena Library Board of Trustees meeting. Kathy, can you please call the roll?
Yes. President Annie Cheng Long is absent. Vice President Kenny Gross.
Here.
Secretary Edward Pearson.
Here.
Trustee Minsun Meeker.
Here.
And Trustee Bianca Richard. Here. We have a quorum.
Okay. On to public comment. In an effort to better manage the business of the agenda, general public comment will be limited to 30 minutes at the beginning of the agenda. If there are speakers remaining in the queue, they will be heard at the end of the meeting. If you would like to make general public comment for items not listed on the agenda and under the purview of the Library Board of Trustees, please now raise your hand on Zoom or turn in a speaker card. Director Billings, is there, okay, well, give a few minutes, but is there anyone present to speak?
There are no hands raised on Zoom and no public comment cards.
Okay. Second item, reordering of additions or deletions to the agenda. Does anyone have any reordering of additions or deletions to the agenda?
Nope.
None? Okay. Next item, number 3, approval of minutes of June 13, 2024, Library Board of Trustees meeting. Do we have any public comment for this?
We do not.
Okay, does everyone have a chance to review, and is there any discussion?
Nope, I move that we approve of the minutes of the June 15th regular meeting.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Director Billings, please take roll.
Vice President Kenneth Gross.
Yes.
Secretary Edward Pearson.
Yes.
Trustee Minsun Meeker.
Yes.
And Trustee Bianca Richard.
Yes.
Okay, next item, consider closing the library, excuse me, for 3 hours to allow staff to attend an all-staff meeting on library health and safety matters. The recommendation that it is recommended the board approve closing the library for 3 hours from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. on a date in the month of August to be determined by staff availability for the purpose of an all-staff meeting on library health and safety matters. Is there any public comment for this item?
There is no public comment.
Is there a staff presentation?
There's no presentation, but if we would like to have a discussion, happy to talk about it, explain.
But no, I just, I'm really curious to hear afterwards some of the comments, because as we move forward in a redesign or whatever we're going to do, I think sometimes hearing from the staff, especially when it comes to health and safety matters, sometimes those things are very important, like a sight line or doors, positions, walls, sometimes add to safety and behavioral issues. So I'm very interested to hear back the comments, and I'm sure you'll be reporting out to us.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's, if you were planning to, but I would be very interested in that.
This is coming out of a lot of feedback we've been getting from staff. Sort of, it feels like things have sort of come to a head and people are very tired of dealing with these kinds of behaviors. It's very wearing, and we got some feedback. Our departmental equity, diversity, inclusion committee is made up of all different staff, and some of the part-time staff in that meeting, because it's the only time they have a meeting, because, you know, part-time staff are all over the place, brought up a bunch of things that had nothing to do with EDI, but had to do with safety. For example, what do we do if we're in the stacks and someone threatens us?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, well, what do you mean? What do you do? You know, like, so it's come to our attention that there's some communication that needs to, there's some discussion that we need to have. And we've, as we described here, you know, we're trying to put some things in place, and we need time to sit down together and talk about what we're doing, where we're going, you know, what to do in different situations.
Yeah, and I understand that, and where I'm coming from also is sometimes the physical layout
Oh,
of
absolutely.
places make it for an unsafe or a safe environment. So I would be extremely curious to hear that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think any architect that's dealing
Yeah.
with public buildings, public libraries in particular, you'll
Yeah.
see in any new public library, the shelving is like 4 feet high. I mean, there, you get sight lines and they definitely have to design for these issues. I think that's pretty common now. But yeah, I'm happy to let you guys know how that conversation goes. Again, it'll be an opportunity for some staff who we haven't had this conversation before to bring up what they need to bring up. The full-time staff have had some meetings and discussions, but it's really an opportunity for people to ask their questions and for us to share information and try to help people feel a little bit better about where we're going and the steps that we're taking. So
Is there a motion?
I move we allow the closing of the library for 3 hours to allow this staff meeting regarding health and safety matters.
Is there a second?
I don't.
Have a motion?
I should also say date to be determined.
Kathy, can we take roll?
yes, Kenny Gross,
Yes.
Ed Pearson,
Yes.
Vincent Meeker.
Yes.
Bianca Richards.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Next item 5, request to designate $6,950 from the Romine Estate Fund to pay for the first year subscription fee and one-time implementation costs for incident tracking software. The recommendation is it's recommended that the board consider designating $6,950 from the Romine Estate Fund to pay for the implementation costs, $2,250, and first year subscription fee, $4,700 for incident tracking software from the vendor Orange Boy Inc. Is there any public comment?
There is not.
And does staff have a presentation?
I just want, I can give you a little more context. I mean, obviously it's here in the report, but, this is a product that's been on the market for quite a long time and I've been looking at it for many years. And again, as sort of these incidences have continued to grow, it's really becoming apparent to us that we need better data so that we can see what patterns are happening. Part of it came out of, I met with the police chief and the deputy police chief, and we were talking about security guards and that we need to make the case for why we need a security guard. So then we're going into our data, which is an Excel spreadsheet that's mostly narrative, it's like these paragraphs and paragraphs of who did what when. And it's really hard to extract from that. So again, this feeling that we need to take some really concrete steps has been a strong feeling that staff have had. So this is a great tool because, you customize the database and then the interface obviously is customized, but it's, you can track all different facets, what part of the building did it happen? What type of, what type of incident is it? And then that all ties back into the code of conduct and how we connect things. So, if the code of conduct of the municipal code kind of outlines types of behaviors and consequences, we can make sure that in the database, we're tracking types of behavior that match up with our thing. So, and then it also has just, automated, when an incident of a certain type is entered, it'll automatically notify who needs to be notified. So if it's something where a staff member was threatened or might have, need mental health support or some kind of special support, that level of incident would, HR would get a notification. And we also think that it will be able to generate our ban letters. They may not look quite like what they look like now, but that would be huge if, we're putting in the information and we can push out the letter that goes to the person. So it has a lot of great functionality and the reporting side is great, it's really great. And I couldn't bring the presentation because it's like proprietary and I couldn't put it at a public meeting, but I'm happy to share it with you guys if you want me to share it via email or something.
I just have two questions. Is it an autofill drop-down menu? So what's the quality of the input? Is it dependent on who's doing it?
That's the big difference is that we can control that.
Okay.
We can have fixed language metadata. So yeah, that's the problem now. Someone puts in 7 a.m., big letter A, big M, someone else puts in 7 a.m. And so we can't pull that. So the database, yeah, it's all controlled vocabulary. So yeah, people are picking from drop-down menus to pick from these. Again, this is a staff thing and it kind of goes with the code of conduct, but kind of figuring out what are we tracking, besides type of incident, what all do we want to capture? But yeah, all controlled vocabulary. So
Can it be edited and tweaked as you guys use it? And like, when we get some more data, like the code of conduct, then we could go back and.
yeah, I
tweak it
think,
and-
yeah, I'm sure we can. I mean, I think that, it's a, like a relational database. So, prior incidents, if we make a new field or something, prior incidents won't have that populated. But it wouldn't impact the ability of us to do what we've already been doing. It would just add extra information going forward.
But is that the only way you can change what appears to be like default settings? I mean, can you just customize for a particular incident as you're typing it in?
Yeah, there'll be, I'm sure, yes, for sure, like, there'll still be a place for narrative.
Okay,
I mean, one of the things I talked to the vendor about is, should we have them import all of our, 500 incidents that we've already captured, but in order to do that, we would have to go through these long narratives and pull out all of those descriptors and all of that vocabulary so that they would then be able to import type of incident. And so we probably will do that manually and just have part-time librarians who are on the desk just slowly put that information in. But yes, we'll still have a field for like the narrative type description, but it'll enable us to look at what time of day, what's the most difficult time of day. And I think for us, being able to, I would really hope that it helps us, keep track of individual people. Because what happens is, we're open 58 hours a week and I don't know, many people cover those desks. So I saw something happen one time and it didn't seem like that big of a deal. Somebody else saw this person do something one time and it wasn't that big of a deal. And we didn't put two and two together. And then something really bad happened. So there's this, it's really hard for us with there being so many different people engaging and managing the stuff to keep track. So one of the features they're developing is kind of like a little mugshot, like when you sit down and come to work and you're a part-time librarian and you're not here very often, you can sit down and see who are the people that I need to be, watching for and need to know. It's very hard when you're just describing people, this tall and these brown pants. I mean, it's really hard. So we miss people. And I'm hoping that this would help us with that.
And is this a good, legit company? And do they have, or other, other libraries or other
Yeah,
organizations are using it?
they do LAPL, they do the county,
Okay.
they do Long Beach, they do everybody. This is one piece of their business. They do other stuff that we're not looking at, but, this is a component. And they're the only ones that do it specifically for the library market. And so it's great because they really know libraries, like one of the salespersons had been a public library director for 12 years or whatever. So they really know, what it's like out in the field right now. So yeah, they're really good. And again, like I said, they've been around for a long time now. That's fine. Thank you.
any other discussion?
I have a question. Whose role is it ultimately then to handle this data set and this relationship? So, right, like there's individual input of the person having the incident, then whose role is it adding the extra couple of hours a week or role of managing this database to make it operational?
Well, you don't
basically?
have to, I mean, there's not much to do. It's really just like a user interface for inputting data. And then it's gonna be supervisors, myself. I mean, we haven't quite figured out
When
like,
it
who's
kinda
responsible
shoots
for
off.
the reporting piece. Like, are we running specific reports periodically, or are we, are we gonna run a report and revisit it every time we have a staff meeting? Like, we haven't figured out how that works, but there's not really a lot of management. Once you set up the initial relationships in the database, there's not much to do. You're just putting data in and then pulling out what you want to look at. So, and yeah, so the people that are involved in the incident would typically be the people putting in the information, which is what we do now in a spreadsheet.
Anything else? Is there a motion?
Yeah, I move that, that we, okay, designating $6,950 from the Romine Estate Funds to pay for the implementation costs and the first year subscription with the vendor Orange Boy Inc.
There's a motion and a second. Kathy, can you take roll?
Yeah, Kenny Gross,
Yes.
Ed Pearson,
Yes?
Vincent Meeker. Yes. Bianca Richards.
Yes.
The motion carries. And just so you guys know, then this will have to go to council, like, I'll take the staff report to them on their consent agenda saying this body recommends that money be used that way. And then finance moves the money and we send it. So there's one more step.
Next item, the Library Community Center Site Planning Project Progress Report. Staff and Site Plan Ad Hoc Committee member, trustee Bianca Richards, to provide updates to the trustees about the site planning project and ad hoc committee, activity.
I'm guessing Bianca doesn't have much to say because we haven't met yet. So we, the great news, and I'm shocked that we were able to do it, is that we did find a day and time that all 14 people theoretically are available. Which I was shocked. I have this complicated grid, I asked you guys all these questions about when can you, when can't you, and so it looks like, it's gonna be the first Thursdays at 7 PM, and we'll do it, at the senior center, because council chambers are not available. And so our first meeting will probably be August 1st, but I haven't sent those invites out yet to the committee, so I'm hoping to do that tomorrow, so that'll then be finalized. I'm out of town from the 23rd to the 28th, so I'm gonna have to get the staff report and everything done before then. So basically next week, we have to get the meeting scheduled and get this published. So that's our first meeting. And that'll consist of, we haven't gotten the agenda completely worked out, but, some, Brown Act training, condensed Brown Act training from the city attorney. And then, the consultant that the city manager's office had, brought on board, who's done a lot of this kind of work, is going to come and kind of speak to the committee about, from a high level, what is the process about and what is your role, what is, so it'll just sort of be a introductory kind of getting started meeting. We probably will also talk about reviewing proposals and figure out how the timeline for doing that, and, try to get those materials out to the committee members so they can start reviewing them.
Put it in my calendar right now.
Next item, number 7, Administrative Policies Review Committee Progress Report. Staff and committee members, myself and Vincent Meeker, will provide updates to the trustees about the committee activity for discussion and direction.
And then do you want to talk about?
Sure. I can start and then Kenny and Kathy, feel free to jump in.
Sure.
So Kenny and I met with Kathy and a few staff members, when was that? Back in May. And discussed a process to review some libraries that the staff had identified as like similar sized communities or, libraries that they had reviewed policies for, both like codes of conduct and associated municipal codes. So Kathy's team member Michael put together a really great document that he shared with me and Kenny that outlines the libraries that are listed here. And Kenny and I split them up to review the policies, the library policies, along with the municipal codes if they're available. And I can just provide like general comments and high level of what I put in my spreadsheet because I was just trying to organize how I was reviewing it consistently. I would just say generally, one of the things I noticed about the South Pasadena policy code of conduct and the municipal code is differences with the other cities is most other cities have the enforcement and like the consequences and the enforcement in the policy. South Pasadena doesn't, like it has the code of conduct and then the enforcement consequences and enforcement is in the municipal code. So like the ones that I saw that I felt were really clear and easy to follow is when the library code of conduct and the municipal code kind of mirror each other so that it's like very clear across both that it's also communicated to the patron. These are the consequences and like how they're escalating and who's going to enforce it. The other thing is the ones that I've seen in the other cities that I like and I think are easy to follow also categorize the behaviors or the rules versus just having like a really long laundry list. And then they usually, the ones I think for staff that might be really easy to follow are they tie the behaviors around like, severity, like moderate versus, severe violations. And then they tie it really specifically to the consequences. Just the other thing I just wanted to share that I've been in general comments is like, it's really not applicable to the library, but I did put in there for folks to look at like the Starbucks code of conduct because they communicate it really well to their customers. It's just 4 rules. And I feel like it's just easy for people to understand. So I put a link in there.
And they're in the body
Yes,
of the
they're in the
report.
body of this report. So like, it just says like, and it's in all of their stores, like, use our spaces as intended, be considerate of our staff and customers, communicate with respect and act responsibly. And like the thing that I saw in a lot of the library codes of conduct or policies that I think can be hard for patrons is when there's like 30, 40 rules, like it's just a lot. Yeah.
Ours
So-
is just like,
Yeah. there's
don't bring your bedroll, like it's way too specific.
And then just so going to like the specific library, like there's a spreadsheet that I was using just to look at things I wanted to call out that I liked about the policies, things I didn't like, some unique aspects, and then things around the municipal code. So I'm not going to go into it in detail. I think just the things that I just Kathy to your earlier item around like staff feeling unsafe. I wanted to just point out like there's a couple where the municipal codes are like really clear around who gets to enforce the consequences. And there's some that are very clear, like it's a combination of staff, police, like law enforcement and or the city manager. So anybody can enforce. And then there's also, I want to say it's Santa Barbara, states that anybody who's threatening or harassing library staff will have a restraining order filed against them. So it's like very clear in their code of conduct, like that's just like a 0 tolerance, like we will file a restraining order. I think just generally the stuff that I liked in some of the other cities is the categorization of the behaviors. Usually there's like 4 to 5 around like, safety or being like disruptive, they categorize it. And then again, when it's tied to consequences and it's clearly communicated. And then I just like shared a couple examples. So kind of like the second attachment is the example from Long Beach. The thing I didn't like about Long Beach is they have a very long list of rules. And they have some libraries have, I don't know if South Pasadena has this, but like some libraries have a code of conduct, an internet technology policy, and then like a separate disruptive children, unattended children policy. And then, okay, and then I want to say like Long Beach has a public health, like health and safety code one too, that covers a lot of hygiene. So for me personally, in reviewing all of it, I just think when there's so many rules, it's hard to track and follow, like for patrons, but also for staff. But I do think like the Long Beach one is nice that it like categorizes the levels by severity and then it clearly says like this is the consequence. And then I included Rancho Cucamonga's because I think their table is really nice, maybe for staff. Their table also not only has like the minor violations, but then they have escalating consequences. And that was one other thing I noticed, like I think, I'm not sure the South Pass one clearly lays this out. The policies that I like clearly lay out in the code of conduct, like these are the consequences. Like you'll get a verbal warning, you'll be asked to leave the premises. And if you don't, this is what happens, which is like a ban of, a day, 15 days, a year.
And our municipal code is not clear. We
No.
spend a lot of time going, well, what do you think? Is this 15 days or is it 30 days? Like
Yeah.
it's not easy to use in terms of day to day.
Yeah,
it's your tool to do these things, and it's not great.
yeah. I think that was, yeah, I looked at about 8 or 9 of them. And I think just the last thing I'll highlight is, I think there's some libraries through their codes of conduct or their behaviors. I kind of have like a preamble at the beginning that talked about like the intended use of the library. And I personally like that because it talks about it being a community space and one that's like inclusive or welcoming of everyone. And you have to follow these rules if you're going to be in this community space. I didn't like the ones that I felt were like kind of outdated interpretations of libraries because it was a lot of like, it's a quiet space.
Kind
to
of
do research and
condescending.
see. Yeah. But the reason I like the stating clearly what we define as the intention of the library, like ties the rules to it.
Mhm.
And like why we have these rules in place to make sure these library functions happen. So
Mhm.
that's it.
Very comprehensive. And I don't really have anything to add, I mean, there's much further into it than gotten further deeper into it than I have so far, but I do have a question, I guess, Kathy, because a lot of this, I think it's important that we tie it to the municipal code where we can, just so enforcement goes hand in hand. There will be plenty of areas I can see where there won't be a municipal code section, but where we can have authority for it, we should. But is the city's municipal code, how often is that updated, or is it just amended as needed and new things
Yeah.
put in, or do they just do a comprehensive review as well?
So this piece of the code was added in January 2017. And staff weren't really aware of it, so it wasn't really being used, initially. So none of the staff that currently work here had anything to do with developing what that looked like and, thinking about it in terms of usefulness and what's this gonna be like in actuality. So I think that, and it was the former city attorney that did this, and I think I mentioned last time, it's the exact same code that, Arcadia has, and they were the city attorney at Arcadia as well. So they took that code, and I don't know how long ago that code was written for Arcadia. But I think no thought went into it from the practical perspective of the people who work here. So I think we just need to amend it. The former city attorney did tell me that it can be difficult to get this type of code through because there are homeless advocates who are sensitive to whether you're, excluding people. At the same time, I mean, lots and lots of libraries have this code, and we don't want to be exclusive, right? I mean, we're not trying to exclude people, so I think it's just a matter of drafting the language the right way. And I haven't talked to our current city attorney, but the plan is as we move forward on our policy piece to engage, get the city attorney in on this conversation and, talk to her about what we think we want to do and the changes we might want to make and kind of get that conversation going. And John, you probably know more than I do about public hearings and how, how many times it has to go
Yeah,
before the council.
It's 2 readings. I know a code revision's on the wish list of the current city attorney, and I think that's important. I think if there's a staff need for a clear consequence in a code, I think that could be prioritized by the ad hoc. And I'd be happy to, even though it's a piecemeal amendment, if we really need it, I think that should be brought to the council. There might be some other parts of the code you want to change eventually, but as you prioritize, bring the most important pieces. And I think it should happen. I think it's important to get something done. And maybe your top 3 code changes might be a good goal.
Yeah. And you guys may remember the discussion. So basically the municipal code that relates to commissions and boards, there's code about the trustees and what their purpose is and, just very basic. And then they added this whole section on that specifically about, behaviors and consequences. So it really is sort of this weird little standalone thing that you can change without impacting anything else. But as you know, we also would like at some point, less critical, to look at that more general piece of code about the library trustees to kind of figure out that the state code and how is it interpreted then in the city code. And so there's still things that we need to do, but those things are, it's literally, it's two separate, you know, we can easily work on this piece separate from all of that other stuff, which is not critical to everyday operations, you know.
Yeah, can I just add, like, for the municipal code, I felt like reading the South Pasadena one versus some of the other cities' municipal codes. I don't think it would take like that much, like, streamlining or editing. It's more that what I felt was like reading your code of conduct. And then if I was a staff person trying to be like, if this person did this once or twice, is it like a 15-day ban? Is it a 30? It's really confusing. So, but like in terms of the actual consequence or like how it escalates, it's very similar across the other cities. It's just the way it reads.
Right.
And our municipal code is kind of hard to track with your code of conduct. I think it's just making it more useful for your staff. And then the one other thing, which I don't know enough about, like misdemeanors and municipal codes, but there are cities that allows like fines. So I don't know, like around if you don't, if you don't, what do you call it, if you come to the premises, even though you had like a suspension, they will allow fines and they're really clear about it. I think across the board, it does say like, if you don't abide by our suspension, it's like considered a misdemeanor, and I don't know what that means, but like there's ones that are specifically, yes, yes. But there's ones that also talk about fines and citations, maybe to like help with more enforcement.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think obviously, as we go down this road, we need to talk with the police department. And, you know, so for example, if the misdemeanor is what you're holding over people's head, which is what it is, ultimately, it's, you can't come here during this period of time. And if you do, you know, you're subject, you know, you're guilty of a misdemeanor. So we have a person who has been banned. We're busy, all of a sudden, there we see her, she's just sitting there and she knows she's banned and she's doing it just to, you know, get our attention. The police can't, she's gone by the time they come here. So this, the idea of the misdemeanor being like that thing that you're holding over their head, I mean, I don't think we've ever cited anyone. And certainly not taken them off, you know, to the courthouse or something, or to the jail. So, yeah, I'm curious to see, like, fines. Yeah, what about fines? I don't know.
And then I would be curious, I know this wasn't, I don't know if we'd have to like call them to ask to know which of the libraries might have security. Because I think there was only one that I saw that's in their code or municipal code that they have, metal detectors. So there's one library that clearly was like, when you come in, like you're gonna go through a metal detector and, we can search your bag. But I would be curious again about like security, because like I do feel like enforcement by staff is really hard. They're, you know, also having to work with these people every day and do their other jobs.
Yeah, one of the things that, the PD and I discussed is that we're working on gathering some of that information from other libraries, who has security guards, you know, are they contracted, you know, how much do they work, when do they work, all that stuff. So that's information that I'm gonna work on gathering through this.
Cerritos is the college. It has, looks like they have a security system at their entrance.
You know, some libraries, they'll tell me, like Beverly Hills, they're adjacent to the police department. So they don't have security guards, so the police department are literally like they're across the courtyard. So the response, they have this immediate response. So there's a lot of libraries like that where the library is part of kind of the civic complex. But many libraries, especially the big ones, have either security guards. Los Angeles Public uses police officers. You know, so yeah, we need to collect that information and get some information about how that's working and share that as part of our kind of our pitch about why we might need a security guard here.
Library operations update. Staff to provide updates to trustees about library events and programs, new services, or changes to service, and to inform trustees about operational matters of note, including staffing changes, project status updates, outreach activities, etc.
So I don't have a lot in here. I honestly, I haven't even been, I don't know if the council member has noticed. The council gets a weekly roundup of activities and all the departments are supposed to be contributing to that. But we have not contributed in quite some time, just due to staffing and capacity. So there's not a whole lot on here, but lots of, obviously, is going on all the time. So summer reading program is going along great. I think by now we probably have more than 1,600 people signed up. But so far so good. You know, it seems like the Wonderful Wednesdays have been successful, and the teens, I think this year, we got rid of the app for tracking. That was just too hard for the teens. Some families were sad that it went away, but the teens can be much more engaged when they're not having to try to understand the app and teach people how to use the app. So that's going great. Just budget stuff at the city level. The city council did not adopt the proposed budget that staff proposed. They adopted continued appropriations, which means they need a little more time basically to revisit the budget proposal. So continued appropriations means we can spend like the same as if it was last year, which for us is not a problem because last year our materials budget was $110,000 and what we asked for in 24-25 is $110,000. So we're just spending the same way that we were last year. So it doesn't have a huge impact on our department, which is nice. Some departments it has a bigger impact on who had big changes from last year to this year. But if I remember correctly, and I put it in here, so I hope I'm correct, I think the objective is to try to get it, something adopted in 60 days. So there's a finance commission meeting Tuesday, there's a council meeting Wednesday, there's another finance commission, so there's a lot of intensive stuff to try to get the budget adopted and over the line. So that's where we are with that. But again, I don't think it's going to have a very big impact on us operationally. Staffing, one of the things that I worried about when the budget wasn't adopted was whether we would be told that we have to continue holding off on filling our vacancies. If you remember, we were in the midst of filling the aide positions in February when all the kind of issues around the budget came up. And so departments sort of were asked to, what can we hold off on? Because people have a lot of questions about the city's financial stability and you know, where can we save some money? So we sort of all agreed, well, we can hold off until the new fiscal year. So when the budget didn't get passed, I was a little worried that I would have issues getting those positions filled, but they should go ahead and fill them. So we're going back to the list that we had generated, the recruitment we did back in the late winter. And so we have interviews next week. So hopefully we'll get some aides. We, out of 10, we have 4 vacancies now, which is 18 hours a week times 4. It's a lot of bodies and a lot of hours, for trying to stay open, 58 hours a week. And then the other recruitment that we're just, opening is substitute librarians, because that also, we currently there are 12 positions that are sort of budgeted. And we have 3 vacancies, but of that pool, we have people who work like once every 3 months. So it may be that we need to separate some of the people that are like that and try to bring someone in who has more availability. I mean, the original idea behind what we call the substitute librarian pool is that they were literally substitute librarians. So someone will call in sick and you would reach out to your pool and say, who can cover that shift? But as our full-time staffing has declined, we've started to really rely, those substitute librarians are like part-time librarians. They may not work as much as our what we technically call part-time librarians, the 2 children's part-time librarians. But you know, they have regular shifts and they work every week. So we rely on them to cover the desks. We need them to provide the services we provide. So we're gonna fill those three, and if that doesn't, if that's not adequate, we'll look at, whether we need to make some changes. And, you know, people that really can't give us the hours, we would let them go and bring someone in who does have the hours. So that's exciting. That's where we are there. The teen, little remodel that we're doing. So the furniture, we were trying really hard to get all these things ordered by the end of the fiscal year and send the money. So we did okay. We got the furniture ordered. So, and I just have a little picture in here. There's like kind of this soft furniture, but then there also will be tables, and along the back wall will be like high counters and like bar stool kind of high counters, which I think will be good for kids that want to focus. And we still need to get bids and, you know, contract for the carpeting job and the painting job. And there's a little bit of electrical stuff that has to happen, which I think that the city electrician might be able to do for us. So timing, as you guys have heard before, it's a partnership with Public Works, and they have a lot on their plates. So I'm trying to figure out with them, what can I do to make it move along? You know, do I need to wait for them to secure these bids, or can I just say, I'm gonna go do it? So we're gonna figure it out. You know, we have this furniture arriving like in the middle of August. So I don't think that the carpet and the painting will be done by then, so we'll have to figure out what to do, but we don't want it to drag on, like the patio tables, right? Remember, we got the patio tables in like March, and they got installed like 10 months later or something, so we don't want that to happen, so we're gonna try really hard to keep that from happening. But we're super excited about it. It's gonna be really cute, at least we think it's gonna be cute. We think they're gonna like it. It's like gonna be a different world back there, right? It's gonna be much brighter, you know, doing what we can with what we're working with. You know, we're not changing the low ceiling and the low light fixtures, but I think just paint and carpet is gonna make a big difference. And oh, I'm sorry, the American Library Association. So American Library Association obviously is the big professional organization for libraries in the United States. And they typically have big annual conference, and I think they have like a mid-year conference, but the annual conference has not been in, I don't think it's even been in California for like 10 years, but it definitely hasn't been in Southern California. So this is really exciting opportunity for our staff to get to, you know, meet with their colleagues, meet the vendors, go to all the sessions, bring back lots of great ideas. And a number of our staff are, you know, serving on such and such roundtable or a part of this committee. And so a lot of those committee meetings, in-person committee meetings happen at the annual conference. So for the four librarians, the four full-time librarians all went down for, it was like a Friday, Saturday, I think. And really were able to bring back a lot of great ideas and information. So I just wanted to let you know that they did that, and I'm happy they got to do that.
Yeah.
It's important, you know, for them to be able to participate and to have it in your backyard and not go is
Yeah.
crazy. You know, it's, and I didn't, somebody had to stay here and keep the library open. So those four were off. So Barb and Nate and I stayed, although I did go down. There was like a short 3-hour workshop on library building projects. So I thought, you know what, I should just go. I went down and back. I just drove down, did that, and then came back. And it was useful and informational. It was good. So I collected all those notes, and as we move forward with the site planning stuff, that stuff we can share. So that's it. That's all I have for.
Kathy, could I ask
Yeah.
a question? In terms of going back to the staffing, I think it's pretty clear from the context, but clerk 1 is a lesser position than clerk 2. I don't know, lesser is maybe not, which to me seems backward.
Oh,
We have second lieutenants and we have first
I
lieutenants.
see. Yeah.
And but I do have it right that.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
yes, clerk 1 is lower, and then you go up to 2, and so that whole, this is a whole other thing. that, we have aid one, aid two, clerk one, clerk two. And they all do very similar things, like the difference in responsibility is between aid and clerk, there's a jump, but there's no difference really between clerk one and clerk two. And aid one and aid two, so we just stopped hiring aid two, we just don't do it, we just hire only aid ones. The city's in the middle of like a classification study, looking at the job descriptions, looking at these series. When they did the part-time MOU, negotiation this year, HR didn't understand that this is, to us, it is a series, like these are promotional opportunities, so you get hired as an aid one, and then we promote, the aid two, if we were doing it, and clerk one and clerk two are internal promotional opportunities. So they didn't understand that, and when they brought out the salary schedule, they had aides making more than clerks, and aides are below clerks. So it's a big mess, and we need to change that, the way that works. And I had put in a proposal a couple of years ago, just saying, can we just there's aid and an aide and a clerk. Like we only need 2 levels. We do not need 4 levels. We spend all our time just recruiting and because of that. So I think that we'll end up someplace like that with a better structure for that kind of series, which is sort of on the support services side of operations. So yeah, clerk one is lower than clerk two.
Communications, king for the day. I don't have any communications, but I just, an informational request. I missed the, Commissioners Congress last month. I was planning on going, and then I had to go to the airport suddenly, there, found out there too before. So if anybody who goes next or anybody wants to, report how that was, then it'd be good to hear about. So, we'll move on to others. Min?
Yes.
Yeah.
I did go to the Commissioners Congress with Bianca and Ed and Annie and Kathy. It was good. It was my first time going since it's my first time being a trustee. And it was really nice hearing about the other commission's work. I think folks are saying it was maybe a little bit less attended than previous years, like fewer folks attending, but it's really nice to hear about everybody's different functions. And I think Annie did a really great job highlighting how the Library Board of Trustees is a little bit different than the other commissions. But yeah, overall, it was really great, like meeting everybody and especially hearing some of our younger commissioners and their passion for public service. But that's it. Yeah, I don't have any other updates. I don't know if Bianca can add more thoughts.
Yeah, and then, I think the city does a nice, job. They have like little giveaways that they give us and at dinner,
Right.
I know. And it's a chance to, to socialize amongst our own selves. We don't get a chance to socialize, so
Yeah.
it's kind of fun to do that as we built our puzzle. And each table had a puzzle that you had to build. But then it was also nice to go around and talk to other people. So yeah, I would recommend that commissioners try to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I only been able to make one, and I enjoyed it. And, anything else to report? Any other comments?
No,
Okay.
I think I did all. Wait, I just have one.
Okay.
Did any of you guys get the thing for the Arroyo, the golf course?
Yeah.
Is anybody else gonna go to that, or did you do the survey? I'll do this.
Did deserve it.
Okay, well, I'll go to the meeting, because I have I wanna hear kind of like what they're planning. So maybe we could get some ideas, like how are they approaching that to approach kind of like maybe what we're doing. So I'll go, just to kind of listen in on that one.
Is it like a public meeting, the
Yeah,
first public
At
meeting?
5 o'clock
for
is
the
for
subcommittee.
golfers,
Okay.
and I'm not a golfer, so at 5 o'clock is for golfers, and at 7 o'clock it's open to the general public.
Okay. I don't even know if all staff are on top of that, so I'll.
Yeah, and I'm just
What day is it?
super curious,
Yeah.
August, yeah, Lucy put that out, I think it was.
Yeah, I think I
August.
talked with her today, actually.
Yeah.
I just didn't open it.
Let me look what it is.
August 7th.
7, thank you guys.
Yes, Wednesday, August 7th, obviously it's probably because it's not a council meeting. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's
So-
kind of interesting that, Lucy is part of the site, this library
Yes.
community center, but they're also in the middle, they're like a step ahead of us doing
Yeah.
the Arroyo, so it's great, because I'm sure that they are doing things, learning things, experiencing things that will help us as we.
Exactly, yeah, so I'll go
Okay.
and then report back, that's all.
Well, first reaction is wow, in terms of the wonderful detail of looking at the code of conduct kinds of things. The other thing that I am sort of pondering is the role that this board can do in terms of supporting the library in different ways, the specific things like challenges of book bans and things like that. But in general, trying to, talk up the importance of libraries in communities. And I'd like to kind of explore that with everybody at some point in the future.
That might be a good, committee of the board,
Yeah.
something that a couple of people can kind of delve into and then come back and run some ideas like a larger board.
Well, and I know we've got to be careful about politics, but there is elections coming up for council members. And I, for one, always talk to those council members about the library. Because I really want to hear, are they supportive of the library? Even though they're maybe not necessarily just as a council member, are you supportive of the library? And I think that's incumbent upon all of us to, talk to our electeds about, support for the library. Because I think it's District 2,
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3 is up for reelection and elections. 1, 2, 3. And the library's in 2, District 2?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Related to that, this makes me think about, as the state was adopting its budget, there were a number of library things on the chopping block. And many, many calls were going out saying, we need your board to write a letter. And I just didn't have time to, have you guys do that. And I don't even know, like, as a body of the city, do we have to get permission for you to take some kind of stance on the budget? But that kind of is related, right? It's this advocacy piece.
Yeah.
That's really powerful. It can be really powerful. You write a letter to the editor and put it in the South Pasadena Review every 4 months, or, I think there are lots of things that boards can do to raise people's awareness and get people excited about the library. So I love the idea and it's in your, bylaws, that that's one of your jobs, right? Is to be out in the community as.
Well, that's why years ago when I nominated Kathy for, what was it, Woman of the Year?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I did it
In-
especially because for libraries.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was Chris Holden,
Assembly member Holden.
when Holden was our assembly person. But I, but I wanted to advocate for libraries.
I think there's a great opportunity to also work with the friends on how we can help support that, because I think that's very in line with our mission. And, you all can only do so much. So it's, that's maybe a great opportunity to, if there's any ideas that,
I mean-
need some manpower, or need some kind of support, or just people,
If nothing else, just little pithy sayings about, why libraries matter.
Yeah.
Well, and who is our new, well, not new, Fong? What's his first name?
Mike.
Mike Fong? I mean, we should be talking to Mike Fong.
Why not?
Yeah, he has an education background.
Yeah.
Very strong. He
Yeah.
provided some earmark money for libraries
Right.
last year. We didn't get any because we didn't have a plan in front of it. We've been very clear that if there's any, there's a big deficit this year, but if they return to significant earmark money, we've told him he needs to make sure South Pasadena gets its share.
He was in the parade, Mike Fong.
Yeah, some.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I saw him too in the parade, so.
Yeah.
Did you see me? I was the announcer.
Yes, you were the announcer.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't think I'm gonna give up my day job, but,
No, you're great.
But
I
it
think
was
I
fun.
agree
It
for
was
Luke. I
kind
think
of I think I can do better next year if I do it again.
That's right.
Well, yeah, you
Yeah.
get better.
Yeah, you get used to it.
Yeah.
Jonathan, city council, liaison.
We have two pretty significant things going on. One is, we parted ways with our city manager, so we're looking for a city manager. We just had a meeting on the interim, just before this meeting. Nothing to announce, but, the council, I think, is moving forward in a very positive, cohesive direction. So that's good news in spite of the bad news of not having a city manager. The other piece is we are under a continuing appropriations resolution as opposed to a budget. We went through that very carefully. There's been a lot of work around the budget, but there's not enough of a comfort level for us to pass it right now. I think work will continue to be done. We explored the downside of a continuing resolution, and it didn't seem to be as significant or impactful as one might assume. Library can still hire the people it needs, et cetera. So I think you're not going to see much impact, if any, in our service levels. We just have to make sure we're comfortable with how we're making spending and decisions, what trend will be on our spending versus revenues. In other words, are we building a deficit or not? And making sure we have enough of a financial reserve. So there's been a lot of discussion over the last year and a half on that. It kind of came to a head in the last 3 months, really. So you've been seeing a lot of articles about it. There's a lot of things that are just kind of happening that maybe aren't reported on. Some of it is pretty good. But anyway, those are the two big issues. We are not taking a summer break, really, as city council.
No,
So anyway, but we do apologize for any feelings of uncertainty or instability, but service levels are going to be fine. Sheila Pouch announced her retirement, and then we brought her back in as co-city manager. So she's acting city manager along with our police chief, Brian Solinsky. They're a great team. They work well together. They know the entire organization. So we're very comfortable with them as acting co-city managers. And there's really nothing in terms of, explosive things that are going to happen, because we are going to look, like I said, we're pretty cohesive as a council moving forward. So thank you for your patience with us. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you. Kevin, our friends, can you please?
Yeah, I'll try to keep it, since we're running really nicely on time here. But I know I didn't come to the June meeting, so there's a couple of things to run through. We've been working a lot with our lawyer this year to kind of put a couple of things up to speed. One of those things was our articles of incorporation, which our lawyer drafted up in new articles of incorporation to amend them to broaden our purpose and mission a little bit. We had a special general body meeting, and our general body voted to approve our articles, amended articles. Those were submitted to our lawyer. They're now in the Secretary of State's hands, and I think they have officially been filed. I'm not sure if we have a response yet, but I know our lawyer took care of all of that, so that's very exciting. It's a first really huge change since. Our lawyer's also going to be working with our bylaw committee to kind of go over all of those. So again, we're kind of just doing a top-down process, which is exciting. And working with a professional versus kind of, hearing a lot of some of the frustrations, like, oh, you can only have so much expertise and so many ideas, but doing it right and proper, sometimes you've got to pay and work a little bit differently.
You're paying the lawyer?
Yeah.
And you're talking so nicely about them.
Because they've been great, can't complain. So, I think the next thing is the Wonderful Wednesdays thing. I helped kickstart that, or the Friends did. And I just wanted to say to that point, what an unbelievable showing of the community and kind of like outreach event. It was packed. The line for those snow cones. So I know you probably talked about that at last June's meeting, but again, just knocked it out of the park. And I know we were just talking a little bit of those are the kind of events that, bring the community together and let how important this place is. So I'd love to keep on forwarding those kinds of conversations or figuring out how we can support maybe the snow cones or, so we can really get people out. It's silly. I mean, you go to college or those PT, it's like offer pizza, and people will come. It's similar. So just want to say that the Friends are here to support any of that kind of public outreach, that people love those water bottles and all the kind of green stuff. So that was a big success. Lastly, the Friends aren't having a July meeting. We are having a August meeting at the end of August, a little bit of different dates, but I'll see you guys then. I think that's it for the Friends.
Bianca, Trustee, nothing. Kathy, anything?
No, I have nothing.
Since there was no public comment, I guess nobody would be waiting, that didn't get on, so I don't think we need to visit that again. If there's no further comments from staff or board members, I will now adjourn the meeting at 8:01 to our next meeting, which is on August 8th. It's Chinese Father's Day. And thank you, everyone.